Hey, welcome to our Chandler regular city council meeting. We're glad to have you here. I know we're going to have a number of speaker cards, and I'll certainly speak to that a little bit later. So our agenda tonight, we have a consent agenda, we have a public hearing, and then we have opportunity for speaker cards that have been turned in, and then announcements. So we'll certainly try to work through all of that as we can. And I do want to thank you all for being here tonight. So with this, clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Hartke,
Here.
Vice Mayor Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have invocation is going to be led by Pastor Bill Kirkpatrick of New Heights Church. Before, as Bill comes up, I'd ask if you would stand and join me in a moment of silence and prayer for the 11 Marines and the one sailor that was killed in Afghanistan and the additional military personnel that were wounded. We could also please remember with our moment of silence and in prayer the 4 men that are being treated at the County Burn Center for injuries sustained in the fire blast in West Chandler today. I do want to thank our governor's office, their Congressman Stanton, Supervisor Sellers, and others reaching out to me and others on this council and expressing their concern and interest if there's ways that we can help. So will you please join me in a moment of silence and then Pastor. Thank you. Pastor.
Let us pray. Lord, first I do pray for the family members of the servicemen that lost their life in Afghanistan. My heart, and I know that you are concerned about those lives and you're concerned about those family members. Even I received a text message of a family member today that was asking for prayer of someone that's serving there. Lord, I pray your love and your compassion, your protection will be around those families, and I pray you would visit them for those that lost their lives, those family members, and touch them today. And for those that were injured in this fire, I pray over them. I ask God that you would be with each of them for a quick recovery. And as it relates to this meeting tonight, I pray over each councilman, woman, and the mayor. Lord, I thank you that you love this city. You love each one represented in this room. And God, I pray you will just be with each one as they make decisions. You would empower them, you would lead them, you would guide them, you would direct them, because you appointed them. And so, God, I pray your great love would be here today. We invite it. We pray your compassion, your wisdom, your insight your knowledge. You know the future and you know all things. So we submit it to you today by faith and knowing that you would lead and guide and you would direct because you love this city even more than we do. So we lift it up to you today and we ask this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Our Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by Girl Scout Troop 3599. Scouts, welcome. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Council, we had the opportunity on Monday to look at the consent agenda, to have staff address concerns or questions. If there are no more, a motion would be appropriate at this point.
Mayor,
Councilmember Orlando.
I move that we approve the city council regular meeting items 1 through 41, Thursday, August 26, 2021.
I second that, Mayor.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional actions necessary before we vote on this or separates? All right. Seeing none, council, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, City Clerk. Next on our agenda this evening is a public hearing having to do with the results of the biennial impact fee audit. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to start by turning this over to our Deputy City Manager, Chief Financial Officer, Dawn Lang.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At this time, I'd like to ask Julie Belt, our Senior Financial Analyst, to come forward and give a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, we're going to have our public hearing on our biennial impact fee audit. Just a few short notes on the background before we get started. In 1997, Chandler was one of the first cities in the state that was charging the full complement of impact fees. And that includes water, wastewater, reclaimed water, arterial streets, public buildings, library, parks, fire, and police. We're now getting to the end of our life cycle. Most of our projects are built. We have active projects still in streets and parks, and we're just repaying back the debt. So Arizona revised statutes require us either to form an advisory committee related to our impact fee program, also known as system development fees, or perform a biennial audit. And all the cities have chosen to take the statutory route of performing the biennial audit rather than forming the advisory committee. So we're in good company on that end as well. Impact fees, just as a brief reminder, are one-time revenues that are paid by developers as they pull building permits, and they're helping to fund our growth-related capital infrastructure. So we use our financial auditors, Heinfeld Meach and Company. They perform various services for the city, including our comprehensive financial audit, and they perform this audit as well. This is the third year they've done this audit, and each audit covers a 2-year time frame. So this is fiscal years 2018-19 and fiscal year 19-20. The audit procedures they perform are coming out to look at how we're progressing through our development. We have projections in our impact fee audit report of our land use assumptions, and they kind of measure how we are progressing on those. They review the infrastructure improvement plan projects of how much we're spending and if we're spending it on the right items. And they also take samples of our impact fee revenue collections to make sure we're charging people the correct amounts and that we're spending it on the projects that are approved to spend on. I'd like to thank Derek Horn and his staff in Development Services because they also participate quite heavily in this audit, and their staff are the ones that are helping the auditors through most of this. The results of the audit were that there are no findings or inequities with our impact fee program. We've now met the requirement of having our biennial impact fee audit, and there's no formal action that's required as this public hearing is the requirement. And the results are also posted on our website for the public to know that we've performed our due diligence and our program is operating the way it should. So with that, I'd like to close the public hearing unless there's any questions from council.
Council, any questions or comments?
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Were there any complaints from our development partners during this time frame?
That's not really part of the audit, but I haven't heard anything on our end. Development Services are the people that charge the fees as they go on the building permits, and our fees have gone down in the last several updates we performed. So I don't think anyone's really complaining that they're paying too much because they're paying more elsewhere than what they're paying here.
Any compliments then? I would imagine if the fees are going down, I'm kidding. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor. So why are we doing this audit again?
We're required to by state statute. You're either required to form the advisory
Right.
committee, and the advisory committee is kind of difficult for cities to comply with because of all of what's written in the statute. So that's why all the cities have gone the route of, well, we'll just do the audit and then have that deeper dive into our program and looking at the expenditures, that sort of thing.
And I heard that. I'm just trying to lead up to. So how much did the audit cost us?
I think it was about $14,000
And we do this every
2 years.
every 2 years.
And the impact fee funds pay for the audit.
Okay, good. They allow us to do, state legislature allow us to
general
do
fund.
that. That was great. Great deal. Thank you. When do we do our next impact fee update?
We are going to be coming forward to council next month, as a matter of fact, to select our consultant at Duncan Associates and start with our next 5-year update. We're
Okay.
required every year to have at least 5 years, no more than 5 years between updates.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions from the council? All right. Is there any discussion from the audience related to the biennial impact fee audit? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing, and thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Next on our agenda, we have a number of unscheduled public appearances. We do have a number of speaker cards. There were also some cards, or not cards, just emails that were sent in, and these will be entered into the record. We do have a number of cards, and what I'm going to do is just, as I have them in my presence with no particular order, call you up. If you would state your name and address for the record here, you'll have 90 seconds to share what you would wish. The green light will be on for 60 seconds. The yellow light will be on for 30 seconds. And if you could please wrap this up. We are, since this is an unscheduled public appearance, we're not able to dialogue with you, to answer your questions or address back with you. I would ask staff if you would please take note, and if there are points that we can then get back to our residents, I'll trust our city manager and our staff to do that. So with that, I'm just going to start calling the names, and if you'll come up, the microphone will be yours for 90 seconds. So Ajay Joshi, and again, if you just please state your name and address, and the floor is yours, sir.
Honorable Mayor, council members, city leaders. I'm AJ Joshi, 30-plus year resident of Chandler. My family and I've lived here for 30-plus years. So I live on Tonto Place, Pine Lake Estates. Real simple. Most of you have been elected by us to represent our interests. All I ask is that we be treated equally like every Chandler resident. My sincere request is, why would the residents of Pine Lake Estates, Reserve at Fulton Ranch, and South Shore be subjected to high voltage lines, declining property values, and health hazards? So my earnest request is, please revisit it, bury the power lines, keep our community beautiful, keep us safe. And that's why we elect you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Allison Gerard. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Again, state your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Allison Garrett. I'm a mother, a wife, a homeowner, and voter, 429 East Horseshoe in Pine Lake Estates. Campaign promises are important. It's why most of you hold the seat you're in. Councilmember Orlando, in your campaign promises, a priority for you was to enhance and preserve existing neighborhoods, parks, recreational amenities, and programs for a better quality of life. You're also personally passionate about working with residents on their local neighborhood issues. We voted for you, and now we need you to help us preserve our existing neighborhoods. We are here begging you to listen and work with us and for us on our local and neighborhood issues when it comes to the Intel HIP project. Vice Mayor Stewart, on June 27th, you tweeted, as a part of the Intel 20 billion expansion, the city of Chandler worked with SRP in support of our neighbors to underground portions of the transmission line and keep our streets safe and beautiful. Well, that's a lovely sentiment, but I apparently am not worthy of a safe and beautiful area to which I reside. It's time to stop patting yourselves on the backs and take notice that the residents around the proposed above ground lines are not happy. Simply stating, it's out of our hands does not work for the 500 plus homeowners and families that will be forced to live in the shadows of those 165-foot high voltage lines. SRP held their open houses this week. All we heard were rehearsed answers, half-truths, and pointing fingers at the city. I received no personal gains from Intel expansion, yet myself, my family, and my neighbors will bear the burden of this change. Why us? Why do we not deserve the same treatment as our neighbors living along Chandler Heights? I oppose the proposal lines along the railroad. Together, we can and should do better. We voted for you and trusted that you wanted the best for all of us. Taxation without representation is unjust. We implore you to just listen to our collective voice. Thank you.
Next is Denise Kleka. And again, if you'd state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Denise Kleka. I live at 409 East Horseshoe Drive in Pine Lakes. I oppose SRP's proposal and the City of Chandler's recommendation to construct high voltage electrical power lines between Pine Lakes, Fulton Ranch Reserve, and South Shore Village. The width of this area is only 100 feet wide. Feet, not yards. That's a little more than someone's backyard. The height of the towers will be almost 2 times the size of the width of where they will be put amongst 500 plus homes. It's this tiny slice of land with a lot of homes around it. We are families that are in this neighborhood. We have a lot of kids in this neighborhood. They're outside shooting their hoops, riding their bikes, jumping in their pools, getting yelled at by their parents to get inside when it gets too dark. And we will be living there if these towers are put up, with the hissing and the churning and the looming of these towers, because they are so close. They are so close to 500 plus homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bill Lee. Again, Bill, 90 seconds. Please state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Bill Lee. I live on in South Shore Village, 280 East San Carlos Way. I'll just get straight to the point. Thank you for your time. I'm an electrical engineer. I work in the semiconductors industry, so I know about this Intel plant. I know how much power this Intel plant will need. I'm also aware of the economic benefits that Intel plant will bring to the city. So I support that, but I'm also a father. And my electrical engineering background lets me know that there's the amount of power that goes through those lines. If they're above ground, the magnetic field that's being drawn and the closeness, as my fellow speakers have mentioned, how close all these homes are to it, with all the children. The children are children there. They're like the kids that are like the Girl Scouts, right? They're playing there. It's like basically having them play in front of a microwave and a cell phone strapped around their head all the time, and that's not ideal. But when you bury these lines, the ground will shield a lot of this. So I'm appealing to you from a scientific, from a health kind of angle to this. And potentially, like if you get a lot of kids that aren't going to be healthy down the road, then like things are going to somebody has to answer for this. So I appeal to you guys to do the best you can to fix this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Lori Ragaccio. Lori?
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Lori Ragaccio. My address is 171 East Havasu Place, Chandler, Arizona. I'm a homeowner in South Shore Village, and my family and I live there full time. And I'm here to ask you to please put the transmission lines underground. I work in the semiconductor industry, and I am supportive of the Intel expansion. However, I think it's wrong to differentiate the power lines next to my neighborhood from the power lines that are going to be put underground. I've looked at the map and the charts that we were sent, and I wanted to point out that Intel's expansion of their Chandler campus, they're spending $20 billion on it. So it seems like Intel could afford to help pay for this. I also wanted to point out that the Chandler City Council, this is from the release that we got, the media release from SRP. Chandler City Council approved an agreement with SRP to fund the difference between building the lines overhead and the added cost of putting them underground. So as a taxpayer, I guess we're helping to fund putting them underground, and that's what we're all here to ask you to do, to please put these major electrical lines underground. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Doug Brune. Mr. Brune?
Thank you much. Doug Brune, 426 East San Carlos Way in Pine Lake Estates. Very disappointed to have to visit with you guys today. You're literally already making me sick from the stress of this thing. What gives you council members, SRP and Intel, the right to change my quality of life? Shame on the council for giving us up only because we have existing 69 kV lines. The 230 kV lines belong on the farmland like north of Ocotillo Road, not smack dab in the middle of 550 homes, many of which are brand new, and 1,200 students at bases. All 4 SRP open house sessions were purely planned BS. All narratives were against all the other options for only our neighborhoods. The SRP Chandler spin regarding health and safety, real estate values was a complete joke. We have multiple realtors in our subdivision that can negate all the SRP comments regarding our values and the open house. So please figure it out. Treat all Chandler residents fairly, bury all the lines. The 1999 Southeast Chandler plan, maybe you guys should get familiar with your own plan from 1999. It's exactly our subdivision. I don't think it planned for 230 kV lines. And it said that we were supposed to have an open forum and more communication before you guys do closed door sessions and jam something like this up our Utskis. Very simple. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Patricia Brune.
Good evening, everyone. I live with Doug, 426 East San Carlos Way. My name is Patricia Brune. We live close. We live in Pine Lake Estates, which is close to the railroad tracks. And I guess my question is, since Ocotillo Road appears to be the most direct route from the Schrader substation to the Intel campus, I would like to know exactly what utilities are running up under Ocotillo Road. Are they under the north lane? Are they under the south lane? Are they in the easements? Where are they? The same for Arizona Avenue. Where are those? Are they under the west? Are they under the east? Are they under the easements? We keep saying, we keep hearing they're full. They're totally full. Well, where?
No one gives us really any direct explanation. Another thing, have you considered burying the lines in Pine Lakes Estates itself? My husband and I went out there with our measuring tape, and we have the room. We have the room along that wall on the Pine Lakes, where the Pine Lakes meets the railroad tracks. Have you measured that? Have you been out there? We invite you to come and check for yourself. As a retired pediatric RN, I am extremely concerned about my grandchildren and my children when they come to visit us. Would you want your children, your grandchildren, to be playing close to these power lines? All we're asking you is find a different route, bury them, or put them under Ocotillo or some other road where they can be put.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. By the way, where is Intel's good neighbor policy for us? Thank you.
Next up is Susan Musselman. Susan?
Good evening. My name is Susan Musselman. I live at 248 East Canyon Way in Chandler, Arizona. I agree with all these wonderful statements these people have been making. I want those power lines buried. We have a nice little walkway along in our subdivision, and I just think of all the buzzy noise that comes off of these things. And as the engineer had spoke, there's a lot of magnetic interference coming down. The other thing is, I have noticed lots of birds on, even though we have these smaller power lines, you find dead birds there. You put these 165 tower ones up there, and oh my gosh, there is water in Fulton Ranch, and there's water out in the other subdivision, and these birds go across. I don't want to see all these beautiful birds dead on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Brewer? Mr. Brewer?
Hello, my name's Scott Brewer. I live at 410 East Canyon Way in Pine Lake Estates. I worked for Comcast for 20 years. I worked for Orbitel Cable Communications here, a community business partner with you along Riggs Road.
Mr. Brewer, can I get the clock to, thank you. Proceed, I'm sorry, sir.
No worries. I work for companies like community partners with all sorts of local establishments. When we're told where to put when you guys want to expand a road, we're not asked where we would like to put our cable. We're told where to put our cable. You guys have the ability to tell people what to do. I think the Orbitel project's a great project. It's going to bring a lot of people and money and businesses to our community. But Orbital's going to make a lot of money. The council's going to, the city's going to make a lot of money through taxes. We're the ones being impacted by this. I think there's an expression that I always try to remind myself when I'm doing budgets for my company is that pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And I think you guys are being hogs on this one. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Richard Mason? Mr. Mason?
Hi, excuse me, my name is Rich Mason. I am a resident of Pine Lake, 517 East Mead Place. So the city put money up for using a beautification fund to justify burying the lines along Chandler Heights Road. My question to you is, once it got to the railroad tracks and it goes 200 feet in the air, did they become beautiful then? Like, why does it become beautiful when it gets by my house, but it wasn't beautiful to go through all those other neighborhoods? And the city found it fit to pay for 2.7 miles of that. I was on the call the meetings with SRP earlier this week. SRP's talking out of both sides of their face. They're blaming you, not them. They're not pointing the fingers at themselves. They're blaming all of you for not having those lines buried. They blame the railroad tracks. I asked them, has anybody contacted the railroad to ask for an easement? Zero answer. So they're claiming the railroad, you guys have no say over it because you don't have any control over the railroad. Well, you do have control over Arizona Ave. So if you wanted to, we're talking about, and I don't know if you realize, 0.7 miles. That's it, 0.7 miles from where it gets to Chandler Heights to where it needs to get to the substation. Come on, we can find a way to get that last 0.7 miles funded, especially if it's under beautification. The railroad needs to be contacted. One last thing, I fly in and out of Chandler Airport. That is Class D airspace. Has anybody contacted the FAA to find out if these high 200-foot lines are going to impact the flight line into Chandler Airport, which we're spending millions on to expand the airport for jets?
Thank you, sir. Next up, Ms. Baba Petro. Mr. Petro.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Baba Petro. This is my 22 years in the US. Moved almost all the major cities because I'm an IT worker. And finally, I said, this is the place I want to raise my family. And I finally bought a place. I live in South Shore Village, 240 East Havasu Place. Very lively. If you guys want to see that, this time of the day, at least 20 kids, they will bike ride just along that line of the power line. And I go bike ride every day. And I find that sound always disturbing. I really don't know how much it impacts to the family, but I'm just 2 houses from the high voltage cable lines. So my request is to bury the line under the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last card that I have that's been turned in is from Satish Benwasi. Mr. Benwasi, welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk. My name is Satish Banwasi. I'm the resident of South Shore Village, 250 East Havasu Place, Arizona, Chandler, Arizona 85249. The power lines are basically less than 250 feet from my house. It's like putting, instead of a single story, a skyscraper next to my house. If the City Council can spend money for 2.7 mile burying the lines for sake of beautification, and you're avoiding these skyscrapers, why not this 0.7 mile? What have we done? Treat us fairly. Bury the lines. It is health issues. We don't have any answers from the SRP. What they did, they are blaming. Ask the City Council, ask the railroad. We have no control. Where do we go for answers? In summary, I say bury the lines and we'll work with you on that. Thank you.
I do apologize. There is one more that got stuck in my small pile here. Mr. Derek Logan.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Stewart, and City Council members. Thank you for letting me talk. My name is Derek Logan. I'm from 445 East Coconino Place, Pine Lake. I'm also the president of Pine Lake. I've been president for about 13 years. I was involved heavily in 2013 when this came out. I saw a sensitivity analysis, and we had like a couple years of discussions. There's been no discussions. This came out in June. We've had no public process on this. Where's the public process? The one thing that really got me was in the contract you have with SRP, it says, item number 2, consistent with this agreement, city will support SRP's efforts to permit and construct the project as depicted in exhibits 2 and 3, and will actively oppose conditions inconsistent with the terms of this agreement, including with respect to interactions with the community and by intervening and actively supporting SRP's efforts before the committee and the commission and other permitting authorities. I feel that not only did you not have a public process before this is saying that you're not even going to listen to us even now. I want to work with you guys. I think you guys want to work with us. I moved out of Chandler. I moved to Chandler in 1990. I left our international assignment for 4 years. I got a job 40 miles away. I wanted to live in Chandler. I read the 1999 Southeast Chandler Area Plan. That was the place I wanted to live. I told my wife and kids, this is where it's going to be. This is almost like a utopia. Chandler is one of the best cities in the state of Arizona. I mean, if not the best. And now this is happening. This is really painful to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor? Mayor? Again, council, we cannot address.
Mayor,
any
I'm going
comments.
to have a question for the city manager.
Yes,
And I could perfectly do that by
you
law.
certainly can.
So city manager, I heard a lot of questions tonight. I do want a detailed report on why we can't go under Ocotillo. What is the exact reasons why? I do not know, and I've been asking this question for SRP now, why they can't go underneath the railroads. What's inhibiting them from doing that? Because when I was out there last week or visiting the area myself this week with one of the neighbors, I asked that same question. That's a big question for them. Have we looked at the residential area? That also came up from one of the residents leading the charge here. Can we actually do something within the residential area? And then finally, why can't we look under Arizona Avenue? What exactly is prohibiting us from going under Arizona Avenue? So if you could get those questions for us, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to address the city manager at this time. Thank you, Josh. I mean, you sat here just like we did, right? We've been called names. We've been told that we are whatever. But at this point, I would like to take the time to make sure that we are civil with each other, because civility in this city has always been what gets things done. We work together to make things happen. And I would appreciate that those who spoke and spoke very well of their feelings and how they feel about their children and all, I thank you for doing that. But right now, city manager, you have heard every one of those concerns. I will really charge you at this point to open dialogue and make sure that our residents are heard. And what I'm hearing today is that there was not a due process, but I don't know where the lack of communication happened, because when we were at the table talking about all the things, I was always told that there was communication and there will be communication, and that SRP was really doing their due diligence to make sure that the residents are on board and then things can move forward. So if you could please take this at heart and make it happen as soon as possible, I will really appreciate it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. Yeah, we sat in a room and we talked about this, and staff presented the plan to us. One of the things that all 7 of us spoke directly to staff was to communicate with the neighbors, to make sure that SRP communicated with the neighbors and Intel communicated with the neighbors. Clearly that hasn't happened. Some of the flyers that I've received and some of the conversations that I've had with many of my neighbors have expressed these things about the railroad tracks. And now that I'm hearing that SRP is pointing their finger at us when we have no say over what goes underneath the railroad tracks, what I'd like to find out is if we've asked the railroad, like as Councilmember Orlando mentioned, if we talked to the railroad about this, if we've talked to the various HOAs, now I guess we have a new option that we can go in Pine Lake Estates. And then I also want to find out about the health hazards. It's come up more than once and on phone calls that I've had, and the difference between I remember when my kids played soccer at Paloma and they had the 265K over their heads and they were 8, 9 years old, and I'd see the dead birds and I could hear the buzzing. It's a thing. It's a real thing. And while I wasn't aware then, it brought back memories and having these conversations, and I didn't know any different. So I'd like to see a health study on that and find out what's going on with that. And other than that, I want to find out why SRP is pointing their finger at us too. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Yeah. Thanks. I want to, again, hi, Josh. So my main thing is, making sure that we support what's already been said, the communication. There is some, just from my knowledge, there are some things with the railroad that we probably need to have some better communication on, because there is some easement there, and we know railroad is very challenging to contact, to deal with, and this is federal, it's not really even city. And I want to know also, are we getting the communication out about the line committee? The line committee that is actually the contact for when you're looking at these lines, and when public have disapproval, that the line committee is actually in conversation, because some of this may be out of our hands in a sense, but also I want to make sure that even with Arizona Avenue, I know that that's the state highway. I think the state owns the Arizona Avenue. So even with the suggestion of any type of lines being buried into the state, what does the state say? So I think that there is a lot of lack of communication, lack of not, maybe there's some knowledge that needs to be put out there more. And then also, can we get a copy of what SRP is actually providing to our neighbors so we can have that in our inbox so we can know exactly what it is. And I would like to see different options if there's some other options, but more importantly, please send us the next time SRP has a neighborhood meeting. Let us all know when the neighborhood, the open house that they're saying that it's called open house or virtual house. I would like to learn a little bit more about what they're putting out there for this process. So thanks.
Yeah, on the, excuse me, on the SRP thing, we can have meetings in person. Chandler's not shut down. So please encourage them to have meetings in person. Thank you.
Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. As you asked or directed, we really can't have a dialogue with you folks. I can say thank you for coming here and sharing your thoughts. And that is where this type of thing occurs. And so thank you for being here tonight.
And I guess go ahead, then I'll finish this.
Might as well. So
Addressing city manager.
addressing the city manager, there's been, again, the presentations today, very heartfelt. However, there was, again, I'm, like I always mention, engineer, data guy, and there was a couple of statements made that some of the council members had mentioned about some of the options and getting some more details that we had received, I think, maybe at a high level from SRP previously, that maybe we do need to get a little deeper dive and a working session behind this to unpeel this banana a little further, just to make sure, again, we are ensuring that we're properly representing our citizenry. So, thank you.
And I'll conclude. I think we've talked about routes and tasked you to get some more information on that. I've shared with you, and the three variables are routes and time and money. And I don't know what the time is on this, other than it's been said that, the urgency with the chips, we're certainly feeling that with the automotive industry and others. But this is our community and most greatly impacted. And thirdly is the dollars. And I don't know, have we asked SRP, can this get stretched out to 10 years as opposed to whatever? So please let me talk. Is there, and thank you, but please let me, and I'd say secondly, related to that, again, there's a lot of money being discussed with infrastructure dollars, that 1-point-something trillion dollars, there's the CHIPS Act dollars, and again, if this is both infrastructure related to those, we've talked time, we've talked route, so let's talk money. Is where can we explore and see, is there other options that are available? So I know we're tasking you to a lot, but again, this is part of the right of a local community for people to talk and to get answers. So thank you, brand new city manager. Yeah. 2 weeks on the job. Thank you. Council, next on our agenda is just council announcements. I'll start and we'll proceed this way. I've got a few. Earlier today, as I mentioned in my moment of silence, we did have an explosion at the shopping center in Chandler at the northeast corner of Ray and Rural Roads. The cause of this explosion is still under investigation. But we do want to thank our first responders and Southwest Gas for working together quickly to make sure that homes and businesses in the area remain safe. I know that there's work to be done, that we'll get to the bottom of this, and our continued prayer and well wishes to those who were injured as well as those who were impacted. It's scary in a city anywhere for something like this to happen, but I'm grateful that of all the first responders that could respond, we had ours. So thank you. Secondly, we have an HOA roundtable coming up on September 14th. The Mulcahy Law Firm will provide attendees an overview that will define HOAs, the governing documents, organizational structures, rights and responsibilities of the board and homeowners. We will also discuss the 10 things that get boards into trouble most often. And lastly, this roundtable will provide tips and tricks to effectively turn your board and everything you need to know into a strong, effective board. I think even this week I received comments from disgruntled people in their HOAs. I hope you're watching tonight online, and I hope that you attend this and HOAs that you're able to address whether it's the grass of a neighbor or something else in your HOA. But lastly, would also like to talk about the census results that recently came out. The U.S. Census Bureau released the first local level results from the 2020 census. The data include population and housing unit counts, race, ethnicity, age, and housing vacancy rates. The census results revealed population of total of 275,987, which was higher than it was projected by our city staff and MAG. Staff is now working on the U.S. Census Count Question Resolution Program to ensure housing and population counts are correctly allocated to the 2020 census tabulation blocks. This effort will begin later this year with the results available in 2022. I do want to thank our Chandler residents for participating in the census. I want to thank Vice Mayor Stewart for your role in leading the census, and this was a good result for us, and we look forward to closing this down with the rest of the information. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to piggyback on the Ray and Rule explosion. Just wanted to make sure that my thoughts, my hearts, and is such a devastating moment when something like this happens in your community. And I want to make sure that individuals and the families that's been impacted, they are in my prayers, and I am constantly praying. When I got the message and found that this had happened, my heart was truly perplexed in every aspect of the way, because those are our colleagues, those are our constituents, those are our friends, our family members. So I want to make sure that they know that I'm praying for them, and I want to make sure that the city, we can, do something, flowers or something during this tough time. And then lastly, I want to thank all the constituents that came out today to express their concerns. I think public engagement is most importantly, is why I ran for office. When you see something happening, you need to speak up. You need to use your voices, because if you don't, then no one knows that you are caring about that issue. And continue to come to the meetings and continue to be involved, and share your passions and your thoughts. And we're here to serve you. You elected us. We're here to serve you. So with that being said, thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
All right. Yeah. First off, I want to piggyback onto Councilmember Harris's statement. Yeah, it's unfortunate again when citizenry gets involved, when something negative in their neighborhood may be happening, whether perceived, real, or otherwise. But again, I implore you, still stay engaged. We've got many boards and commissions out there. Stay involved in the city. Stay engaged. Interact with us. You can go onto our webpage. A lot of us have our personal phones and emails on there. That's what we're there for. We're here, again, like you said, to serve the interests of the city and serve you. Also, I want to address something else that also hit the news very recently. A lot of you may have seen that last week that the United States Bureau of Reclamation declared that we are in a Tier 1 Colorado River shortage here in Arizona that is going to start, and the way that it gets depicted, even though it's been designated this last week, the shortage technically starts in January. So it'll run for the entire year of 2022. So currently I'm representing the city of Chandler on the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association board. And I can assure you that Chandler has spent decades planning and preparing for this. As I tell a lot of the surrounding cities, and when a lot of the subject comes up for drought contingency plans in Chandler, we've been harvesting our water, lack of a better word, harvesting our nuts for a long time to make sure that we are going to be good and solid for our businesses, our citizenry, for generations to come. And we've been doing that with the frugal investments that we've made. And when I say investments, that is our money. That is your money. That is my money. It is the money of the businesses and the individuals that live in this city And I make sure that we are well aware of that we're spending that money appropriately. So this shortage will not be impacting our city at this current time. The water supply in the city is ample enough to handle the shortage, but we can play a role in water conservation. As always, check your leaky toilets, make sure your pool isn't leaking. The old adage from the 80s, right? Turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth, that kind of stuff. Make sure we're still telling that to our kids. So every drop helps fill that bucket so that our shortages aren't as extreme in the future. So we will also continue as a city to share updates on the situation as it unfolds and throughout next year to see how we get out of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Great job by police and fire today and on execution and working as a team for that explosion in North Chandler. We appreciate everything you do. You're simply the best. I mean, it shows through and through every time something like this happens. So thank you to the chiefs in the back there. And thanks for being here tonight. It is great to see the community engaged. And that helps us communicate as well. So grateful for you showing up. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the thousands of Americans that are still left behind in Afghanistan. And that weighs on me greatly. Those are our people, and we got to get them. But this coming in 3 weeks, we have Startup Connection event. So I'm real passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm real passionate about startups, and I want to make sure that people know that this is happening. And it feels weird to say this after everything we've talked about tonight, but I still want to get that out because it's on the screen. September 17th and 18th. You can come to our innovation center just around the corner here, and there'll be angel investors. There will be startup experts. There'll be a number of different groups that will help you if you have an idea of starting your own business. We have a ton of engineers in this city, and there are groups, there are businesses that are popping up everywhere we turn around. So there'll be workshops all over. It's a free event, but you definitely need to register. So please register at innovationsincubator.com. And I'll be there in attendance and look forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I could probably come up with a lot of announcements, but what I do want to say tonight is that September 6th is Labor Day. And so between now and then, as you're making your plans for that weekend and buying the best brats or whatever it is, watching the best game, think about how much you are appreciated if you are part of labor. If you work, if you've earned your Social Security or earned a pension, if you're out there struggling to make your bills because you're working and you're doing your best, let's just think about labor and celebrate people that continue to be the backbone of this country. Thank you.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. There's so much disasters going on in the world right now. It's all over the world. As I sit here tonight, there are people dying every minute, every second. But tonight, all I can say is that our residents are here and they're in need, and we are here to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Orlando.
Mayor, normally I don't have any announcements, but I got just a couple things. Go back to Vice Mayor's comment about the getting folks out of Afghanistan. My son is intimately working on doing just that. He's working on the State Department side of it. I've gotten some really good. They are doing what they can do, and I can honestly tell you that. So that's good news. In fact, I've actually had a couple servicemen reach out to me because of my prior service career, and I've been helping with them with Congressman Stanton as well as the two senators and trying to get some of their interpreters out. So we may not be visible all the time, but we are doing a lot of things behind the scenes and making things happen. I too want to thank you for coming out tonight. I'm going to answer that lady's question. I do care about neighborhoods. I've been doing that for 5 terms now. So I got a history record, a track record, and we'll continue working with you to make sure that record's on the right course. Number 2, the lady that addressed that, my grandchildren do live in that area. And believe me, I'm concerned about it as well. In fact, I don't even know if I have a conflict of interest because of that. But as long as I don't have a conflict of interest, you have my word, we will be doing the best we could to mitigate this issue. Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll be brief. I just wanted to also thank our teams that responded to this morning's incident out at Ray and Rural. Certainly our police and fire teams were there all day and did an excellent job, but it actually takes a bigger team throughout the city when we have incidents like this, especially when there's a city facility like our library involved as well. So just wanted to mention our community services, CAPA, buildings and facilities, development services, public works and utilities, and also our risk management division and our law department have all been involved in helping to respond to that incident. So thank you to everybody on our team and great job working together as well. Thank you.
All right. With that, council, that concludes our meeting. Thank you. Thank you.